All right, welcome back. You're still watching Tonight, and it's time for Data Point. We want to focus on the new law, that is the Affordable Housing Act of 2024 that was signed into law by the President on Tuesday. It has quite some major implications, which is what I want us to reflect on. First of all, the law is talking about the 1.5% charge. Of course, you may know it because it has been implemented before between July and at least up to December, or was it January 2024? And the deductions will now come back so that for your pay, a monthly salary, 1.5% will be deducted, and the employer will pay a similar amount to the government. But there's something new happening for those that are unsalaried, meaning probably they make their earnings every week or every 2 months or at different intervals. And everyone else who has an income, they're supposed to pay 1.5% of their gross income to the government. Of course, the formula will be described clearly by the regulations, but there are a few things that are contained in the Act. First of all, the Act talks about that the commencement date of that Act, especially Section 4 and 5, which talk about enforcement of the levy, it should be on the date of assent, meaning the President assented to the law on 19th of March, so the Act takes effect on that date. But what does that mean when it comes to deducting from salaried workers? Because salaries are paid accruing from the first of the month, meaning for the month of March, your salary accrues from the first day. But on the 1st of March, there was no law requiring you to pay a housing levy because it has been passed and assented to on 19th of March. So how does the government calculate the levy for this amount of salary that will have been paid between the 19th and the 31st of March 2024? That's a question that the government will have to deal with. Of course, it is clear that it is not possible to apply a law retrospectively, because if it didn't exist, then it would be illegal to charge that levy. But the Principal Secretary, Charles Hinga, is talking about that the levy should be charged on the salaries for March. There's that question. What happens between 1st and 19th of March 2024? The plan of the government, the promise during the campaigns was to build 250,000 units every year. The argument was that 50,000 units are produced by the market, or rather market supply, and saying that the balance is 200,000, which the government is going to focus on. So the government has been in office for just about, is it 18 months? And 103,000 units is what the government reports to be houses under construction, not completed, under construction. They're also saying that over 110,000 jobs have been created for different cadres, especially those working directly, some working indirectly in the construction sector. So the housing levy collections, the figures from the government, and this is according to the PS, Charles Hinga, is that between July and July 2023 and January 2024, 32 billion shillings had been collected, and this is money that was going to the housing levy. But 3 billion shillings has already been spent, and the balance is 29 billion shillings that the PS says is being held at the accounts of the ministry at the Central Bank of Kenya. Of course, there are different reports that we had received from the President back in December saying that much of the money had already been spent on the projects. Now, the projections are that with the new law, the amount of levy collected will rise from a maximum of 6 billion shillings per month to between 9 and 10 billion shillings per month. That's according to the PS. Meaning if you calculate this in a year, 9 times 12 would be 108 billion shillings, and 10 times 12 would be 120 billion shillings. So the range is between 108 and 120 billion shillings. But of course, so much work will have to be done to be in a position to ensure that those Kenyans that are not salaried are also paying that required levy. Now, there are various benefits that are described in the Affordable Housing Act, but also some that the government officials have been speaking about. So the Act talks about persons earning between 20,000 shillings and below should fall under the social housing, meaning they'll benefit from a certain level of housing program. But the PS says that for one room house, you'll pay 3,200 shillings per month as part of rent, but also part of the payments to own it. Two-roomed houses will cost 4,800 shillings per month, and the three-roomed houses will cost 6,400 shillings per month. But this is nowhere in the Act. So if you look at this, for someone with a salary of up to 20,000 shillings, having to pay this every month, that's according to what the Principal Secretary says. And the law does not speak about how much should the deposit be for that particular house, whether it's a percentage or as an absolute figure. It appears that the Cabinet Secretary will be prescribing that in the regulations. There is another category of affordable housing units. These are for persons that earn between 20,000 shillings, over 20,000 shillings, up to 149,000 shillings per month. Now, they will benefit from studio units, or what you may call a bed-sitter, that they will pay 5,200 shillings every month. For two-bedroom units, they'll be paying 10,200 shillings per month, and for the three-bedroom units, 15,000 shillings per month. Again, this is information from the Principal Secretary. It is nowhere in the act that the President signed the other day. Maybe it will come in the regulations. There's another category, middle-class housing units. These are persons that earn more than 149,000 shillings per month, and the argument here is that they will be getting more affordable mortgages with rates that are going to be fixed. The Principal Secretary talks about certain rates, but they're not anywhere in the act, meaning maybe that is work in progress, so that will come later. So there are a few steps that will be taken. At the moment, the Affordable Housing Act talks about a board. That board, already there's a chairperson appointed by the President, Dr. Linda Nkadha, will be the chair. But the PS National Treasury and the PS in the Housing Department are also members of that board, but they may appoint their representatives to that board. Others are going to come from the Council of Governors, the COTU, that is the Central Organization of Trade Unions, and the Federation of Kenyan Employers. They will be nominating members of that board. There will be 3 professionals appointed by the Cabinet Secretary with a specialization in built environment, finance, and law. They'll have to be competitively recruited, and the Chief Executive Officer will be appointed by the board, but will have no power to vote. The other things that have to happen as this process continues is that the regulations have to be presented to Parliament within 30 days. It is the work of the Cabinet Secretary for Housing, that is Alice Wahome, to do that, and to do so within 30 days so that they can be considered. But there are several processes that go into considering regulations, including public participation and, of course, being considered by the Committee of Parliament on delegated legislation before they can become applicable as part of the laws of Kenya. But remember that question about what happens to persons that are not salaried. There is also a question that has no particular formula in the law, but they say every person must pay 1.5% of their earnings to the government in terms of the housing levy moving forward. And that is data point for this week.